is Kate Lane. I am an IFBB Figure Pro. I went pro, I'd say 8 years ago. I've been competing for 16 years, and during, I guess, even the process of becoming a pro, I became an NPC Judge 13 years ago. I just wanted to be involved even in my off seasons. So I started judging, and then since then I've become a head judge. I'm the NPC Illinois Women's Coordinator, the NPC Illinois Judges Coordinator, and I now promote 2 shows for the state of Illinois, one in the spring, one in the fall. And then my bread and butter, my business I started 16 years ago was just teaching posing. Before I had my daughter, I did it 6-7 days a week. Now I've limited it quite a bit. You know, I'm home with my daughter, but you know, I have clients all over the world. It's really pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So that's me. That's my business story, right? Personally, I'm a mom. I don't compete anymore. I've retired. Married. Live out in the country. A lot of outdoor activities, cooking and baking and gardening, and a lot of bourbon. And so that's kind of, you know, my personal side, and then my professional side, it's all bodybuilding. So been doing it a long time.
So how'd you actually initially get into the sport? I
was 21, working full-time, going to college full-time. And I was a smoker at the time. And, you know, you're a guy, so girls will connect with this one, but I hated putting on a shirt and like pulling it away from my stomach, or like, oh, I feel fat in this, taking it off, changing it into something else. And I was never fat. It's just, you know, the societal norm of what a woman is supposed to look like, I guess, which I don't care about anymore. So I just wanted to feel healthier. I wanted to quit smoking. I just wanted to get in shape. So my parents bought me a Lifetime Fitness membership for Christmas. And I got Bill Phillips' book, Eating for Life. It's an old school one. So I got that. I started reading that, eating like 6 meals a day, and started going to the gym. And literally, I didn't know how to turn on a treadmill. I'm not kidding. I had to go up to the desk of the trainers, and I'm like, I can't turn this thing on. He put like the emergency clip in it. You know what I mean? Which was mortifying. And so all I did was walk on the treadmill and eat healthy. And then I started buying, like, you know, the women's Muscle Fit magazines and stuff. And because I wanted to look like those girls with their muscles. And I started teaching myself through the magazines how to lift weights. And I remember my first time going from the treadmills to the weight section. I was so overwhelmed, I felt dizzy. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm trying to remember, like, from my magazine, what exercises I'm supposed to do. And, but I kept having that in my head that I want to look like those girls from my magazines. And they were all figure athletes. Because at the time there was no bikini. There was no women's physique. There was no wellness. It was figure and female bodybuilding. And I decided, well, I'm going to do a show, because if I do a show, I'm going to look just like that. Little did I know, your first time, you certainly don't. But that's how it started. I did the show. I was clueless. My mom tanned me in the bathroom the night before the show. I did my own makeup. I was clueless. I got last place, and I was happier than a pig in shit, because I was proud of myself, right? And then my goal was just to come back the next year and just do better. And it just kept snowballing. And now here I am. Went from last place to all these things in the bodybuilding world. Yeah,
exciting.
It is. I love my story, because I was really so clueless, just like a lot of first time athletes. And I wish I had somebody at the beginning like me. Because not only do I teach posing, but I try and go over everything with them, backstage, what to expect, what you're going to hear, what it looks like, what it feels like. I talk to them about how to prep their skin for the tan. And I mean, the sport's evolved a lot since then. But I just don't want any first-time athlete, because most of them, 70% of them, are first-timers at any show. I don't want any of them to be as clueless as I was. Even though it worked out fine, I still had fun. I made friends. Yeah, I love my backstory, because it kind of shows all these athletes, like, you can get last at your first place or at your first show. and still like dreams come true.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody wants to win their first time, and then they never do it again because they didn't win. And the sport's just not like that. And you can do it. You just got to keep at it.
Yeah. And I think it's such an interesting age that we're in now, because you kind of mentioned where you're trying to like remember all these exercises from the magazine. And now it's kind of like there's so much information. Then it was like there was less information, but maybe it was more condensed into like more quality information, whereas now it's more information spread out over, anybody can share it. We have social media now. You can literally go start your own page and people can follow you, whether you're doing the right thing, the wrong thing. Nobody's checking you.
Yep.
Nobody's publishing it. Nobody's editing it. It's just,
right.
It is what it is. And now it's like, but you can also at the same time pick up your phone in the gym, go to
Yep.
YouTube and look at an exercise. Hey, is this how I'm supposed to be doing it? And then you check your phone and 2 minutes later, it's like, okay, I made the correction. So I think it's like a give and take when it comes to technology in that way.
It is. They even have apps now. Even the coaches have their own apps where they send their client to the gym and they follow their app and their exercises and the examples of the exercises for the day, which is awesome. It is really cool. There was no social media, right? Like when I started, I was trying to remember a magazine, and it's cool and it's not, you know what I mean? Because then people might be unfortunately unknowingly following the wrong advice, the wrong diet advice or exercises that they're not prepared to do in terms of mechanics. It can be good and bad, but everyone's got to start somewhere. So if it's an app of some bikini athlete and it gets you at least in the gym and feeling confident, then do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a perspective of like, now that you're kind of more in a different capacity in the sport, you can kind of see the bigger picture of like all the athletes and what's going on and what they look like. Has there been a change in the athletes and in the performance, really, all of it, because of the, is it a good or a bad or kind of a mixture of both?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think it is a mixture of both. I don't want to say it leans toward the bad because I don't want to speak negatively of our NPC athletes and their reasoning for getting on stage and competing. But I feel like a lot of them are in just the age we're in nowadays. Everything's instant. You want it, you get it now. That instant gratification. Bodybuilding is not like that. You can't go to the gym and start lifting weights for 6 months and have that ideal body. So there's so much patience involved in bodybuilding and learning and growing your physique. So that makes it really hard. And then just that instant gratification in terms of like a lot of younger athletes, their reasoning for doing it is they want to be Insta famous. They want to be a sponsored athlete, when that doesn't do anything for you besides they make you sell their products and you get a couple free ones. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say that's doing it for the wrong reason, but this is such a self sport. It's a hobby. It's an expensive hobby. You have to do it for yourself and just wanting to learn and grow and challenge yourself, and not for all those outside things that they look like. Instagram models, leggings, first place trophies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think I answered that right. I kind of went like soup.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here just for a second. Let me tell you about Smoking Gun Coffee. They're a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to produce a quality coffee at an affordable price. They only buy coffee from small coffee farmers around the world with a cup score of at least 85. Each batch is roasted to order for maximum freshness. They also donate a large portion of their proceeds to organizations that help local communities, veterans, first responders, or you can donate to the foundation of your choice at the checkout by going to www.smokingguncoffee.com. That's SMOKIN Gun Coffee. When it comes to science-backed supplements that taste great, 2NS is your one-stop shop. They truly maximize quality by making their own supplements in-house. With over a combined 90 years of experience, 2NS's team of industry experts has a commitment to research, quality, development, and innovation. The body is sacred, so give it the best. Check out all 2NS has to offer at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com.
No, I think it's a good thing to bring up, because it's like the sport becomes the secondary thing. It sounds a little bit like you're saying to some people, it's more of like a foot in the door than
Yeah.
it is let's train and let's, focus on our nutrition and let's get some good sleep and,
Yeah.
repeat. Now it seems like it
Yeah.
is more of like the bodybuilding scene and the influencer scene is almost like starting to combine into one.
Right. It's people think bodybuilding is the influencer scene, and the true bodybuilders they understand it gets hard. It gets hard. And these first timers don't have any concept of that, which is fine. But it gets tough and you have to stick to everything. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, well, I couldn't really get my cardio in, or I'm doing my best with my meals. It's like doing your best with your meals. If you're a bodybuilder, your meals, your sleep, your lifts, your cardio, your posing practice are perfect, and they're every day. Not this you're right. I feel like they want to be an influencer and they think their road to an influencer is by being a bodybuilder, but it's not that. It's not that.
And do you think that that's bringing, it's bringing more people obviously to bodybuilding, which could be a good thing in regards to bringing more talent into bodybuilding? So once again, it's kind of that give and take of like, yeah, we might get, 10 new people, but that one person might be the next, Olympia star. So it's like, is it worth it when it comes to the give and take?
I think it is worth it. I mean, I do think it is, because if you look at the NPC as a whole, it's also a business. So you're always trying to get new people into your business, onto the stages, onto the shows. It is a good thing. But there's a 70% rate of newcomers. So that means there's a 70% rate of people who do it one time and leave. But then we got 70% more coming back and a new flood of them. So there's a lot of recidivism rate. Is that what it would be called?
I think so.
Yeah, something like that. Like a lot of people do it one time and realize it's not what they thought and bail. But there's always the next big group flooding in. So I feel like, yeah, it's a give and take. And a couple of those athletes might fall in love with it and keep doing it and be great. And they just want to try it.
Whenever you work with people, what do you feel like? Do you feel like you can kind of tell, if it's somebody's first time or second time, like, hey, this person's going to be in it for the long haul, this person probably isn't?
You can tell right away. And I start with my new clients who walk in my room. I always try and do a little kind of get to know you, because it's a very personal, intimate. I'm in this little room, and they don't know me and they're not wearing a lot of clothes. I ask everyone to dress how they feel comfortable, but now they have a stranger staring at their body, physically moving and adjusting their body. So there has to be that, let me get to know you. So I ask, have you competed? Who's your coach? Why are you competing? And the why, and as they keep coming in, and listening to their, well, how's your prep going? Come back. How's it going? How's your diet and everything? You can tell right away. I can tell from day one if they're ever going to do a show again. I can tell from day one, just based off the reasonings for doing it. Or, fourth session in, and it's I'm trying to hit my macros. I did pretty good this week. I'm like, this person will either never make it to the stage or never do another one.
Gotcha.
Ever again. But yes, I can tell right away. And maybe that's because I've been doing this for 16 years. And my whole job is really a therapist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can tell right away. You can tell right away. And the most frustrating ones are the ones who have the genetic potential and they just don't have the heart and the drive. And then you have someone like my friend, John Meadows, who had the drive and the heart and the soul of bodybuilding, but he never had the prettiest physique. You know what I'm saying? He never had a beautiful body. And someone like that, I appreciate, I think those athletes more, who have all the heart and soul for it. And they just keep working at it and working at it and working at it to be better than the ones that just are wasted talent.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah, it's almost hard to say, like, to have those, because it's crazy in the world, because really really it just comes down to like putting in the work for anything, and
Yeah,
it's sad to think that people do have like the gift or the potential, and they
yeah.
just don't utilize it in anything, whether it's bodybuilding or education or whatever, it's just I wonder, if what it really comes down to, and is it something is it kind of like cause or effect, or is it bodybuilding maybe has more of it because bodybuilding creates it, or is it because bodybuilding attracts it?
Ooh, I feel like I would say it more attracts it than creates it. Because if I really think back on, like, some particular clients who have all the heart and or have all the potential and no heart and drive, if you look into their personal life as well, uh, those people often don't have their shit together. You know what I mean? It's like they just can't give their whole self to anything: relationship, job, education, self-care. Sometimes they tend to be a bit of a mess, and maybe bodybuilding attracts them because it's a goal. And then just like everything else in their life, they flutter through it. They don't just go after it. Bodybuilding, my God, to stand on stage proud of what you've brought, even if you're not perfect, as long as you have done everything, crossed your T's and dotted your I's every single day, you'll at least stand on stage proud of yourself.
Yeah.
There's at least that. And I wish everyone could get to that point, but the people who cheat on their diet and don't do their cardio, they don't even get that feeling, that pride. But then they're also doing that in all the other aspects of their life.
Yeah.
For the part.
So in a world where like motivation and discipline and hard work and work ethic, all these things, it kind of seems like it's in a big way, it's like a dying breed
Yeah.
of things. Do you
Yeah.
think that is a reason why bodybuilding maybe will never become the most popular sport, is because people can't really relate to it the same way they can relate to just, throwing a football or shooting a basketball?
Yeah, I do think that. And if you think of societal norms too, men, I don't mean to say it like that. Men don't typically find women with muscles attractive. And I know a lot of women who look at men with these big muscles, more so than like a football player. They think that's gross. They think it's unattractive. So there's like kind of that stigma. So I don't think it would go mainstream in that regard. And it's different. You watch a football game and it's fun and you're cheering, you're rooting, and bodybuilding, I don't know. I feel like I go back to, it's such like a self sport. You do it for yourself, like other people watching it, unless it's your loved ones. It's kind of, I don't want to say boring, but it's not that excitement back and forth. I mean, if I watch a men's bodybuilding overall pose down, to me, that's exciting. It's fun to watch. It's cool. But when you're outside of that niche, you're like, oh my goodness, look at these guys and these big muscles, and they're not wearing anything and they're all greasy. Like that's what, some of the moms who have come seen their daughter compete say to me. They're like, oh, I was very surprised. Like people get very uncomfortable about it because it's so odd. It is odd. Think about it.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of greased up, shiny, muscular people and wearing no clothes. So to the outside world, it looks weird versus like football, basketball. That's my team. That's my town. I don't think it'll ever be that big.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20. Online at mybapparel.com. Ready to take your supplements to the next level? 2NS is here to help. 2NS strives to help you attain the highest degree of health and performance. Combining cutting-edge science and the best from nature, 2NS gives fitness enthusiasts and athletes the fuel they need. Check them out at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
You know,
Is there any, do you know of, or in the past, has there ever been any, or is there going to be any, like, any new things, anything that could spice it up?
oh man, you know, I think, I don't know of anything in the pipeline. Here we are with wellness being what, a year and a half old in the United States. Their way of spicing it up is trying to help athletes who don't quite fit into a particular division genetically, is by adding a division, including more people. You know, the figure girls that couldn't get that big, well, now we have bikini. We wanted a more obtainable physique so that more people could come and do it fresh into working out. It was more obtainable. Men's physique used to be that way. It was for the average in shape beach body guy. Come on down. Now you can compete and show it off. I mean, that division has clearly gotten massively muscular in the last 5 or 6 years. Where the hell was I going with that? Where was I going with that?
I think the question was, like, any new flair, any new spicing it up.
So aside from like adding new divisions to, you know, bump excitement for people who are like, I could fit into that category. I could do that now. I don't know what else they would do to spice it up. Fitness is a dying breed, and that's a fun routine to watch. That's all like lights, camera, action, flips, all that stuff, and that's dying out. I don't know what they could do to really like bump it up. I really don't know. And men and women, I almost don't see how there could be any divisions added on at this point. Like, what else are we looking for? You know, I know there's some off federations, non-NPC, that have like transformation divisions, which is great, but this is NPC, this is bodybuilding. It's not a transformation competition. It's how you look that day on stage competition. So I just don't know or could foresee anything to add in to spice it up. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, you know, they're up there and at the big office planning and scheming things, but nothing that I've heard, and honestly, nothing that I think that they could do. If you love bodybuilding, you love it.
Yeah.
And it's fun anyways, you know?
Yeah. It seems like it's almost the plan of like, let's not create more fans, let's create more participants to get, you know, that seems like it's kind of the way to go.
It really is, because participants become fans. And going back to the business aspect of it, the more participants, the better, because it's a business. The more money in our pocket, and that's not what it's all about. But the more participants means the more people in the crowd. So the athletes feel better when they're on stage and the place is packed and more friends and family are there. It just makes the whole atmosphere and the vibe better when you have more people on stage. So then there's more people up there, more to watch, more people in the audience cheering everybody on. But it's hard to create a fan in this weird industry. Every first timer that comes in here, and I would say the majority of my clients are females, they all say, my mom was like, what are you doing? And my dad asked me, what are you wearing? So it's strange. It is strange if you think about it.
Yeah. So you mentioned the why, like why people do it, why people don't do it. What are some of the most common for as long as, like, as far as both of those go? Like, which one do you hear most when it comes to, oh, this person's probably going to stick to it, and which one for the opposite reason?
The opposite reason is it was a bucket list, or I've heard this several times. My boyfriend cheated on me with a bikini competitor. I've heard that a lot. So they think, you know, achieving that bikini look will make him jealous. I don't know. But then the people who you can tell are going to stick to it have been athletic through school, maybe even college athletes, always been in shape. And you know, last year I ran a couple marathons. The year before that I did powerlifting. So I'm looking for my next challenge. People who just want to constantly be in shape, work on their physique, challenge their physique, are people who already have the mindset to stick to it. Because this is an ultra marathon. You can't look your best at your first show. Well, you'll look your personal best, but you're not going to look like Mr. or Mrs. Olympia your first show. It's a long haul, long off season, make changes, do it again, repeat. So the people who have already had like a very strong athletic background and understand, because it's like being an athlete, training year round, eating all the things year round, they're more likely to stick to it. And the first timers who have never been to a show and say, oh, well, I want to be an IFBB Pro, they're not sticking to it. They've never even seen a show and they think they want to be an IFBB Pro, so they have like no concept of it. And then once the work gets really hard, they're out.
Yeah.
It's more the
yeah. And I think it's interesting because a lot of times people don't they don't have maybe the background, like you're talking about the athlete. So they don't really understand. And going into like bodybuilding, it really is almost like completely changing your lifestyle. So the level of dedication to it, and if you don't really have an understanding of what
it takes.
Yeah, what it takes, how progress actually works, what giving, sacrifice feels like. I just think it's almost mind blowing that anyone wants to like be in the sport, because it is so demanding. You're going to give up so much, but obviously there's so much positive to it.
Yeah.
Because people are, doing it for their career.
Yeah, very much. And I do find too that if you've got that kind of right-sided mentality, not the get back at my boyfriend mentality, and you realize how efficient and dedicated and structured you can be, it does positively affect the other areas of your life. So if you realize you really have to structure your whole day, cardio, meals, job, spouse, kids, and school. I mean, some people are doing all that. And you really realize you can plan, you can, and you can still get everything done and really structured and really motivated. Your career could get better. Your schoolwork could get better because you realize you can do it. You can fit it in if you want it. You make the time, you make the effort. It really can positively affect your life. You just become a more type A, and is that a good thing or not? But a type A dedicated, a lot of mental fortitude type of a person in all aspects of your life, because you have to be that way for bodybuilding. You have to.
So in regards to bodybuilding as like the sport itself and kind of the structure around it, now that you're in a different capacity, like what have you realized about the sport that maybe you didn't understand before? I
realized, and this is part of the reason why I really won't compete again, that in order to be great, although like we just touched on, your life becomes hyper-focused, organized, planned. It's, I don't want to say this in a bad way, because I love bodybuilding. It's brought me all of this. It's all very hyper-focused, dedicated, on yourself. So you kind of go through that prep, or for me, 16 years with your blinders on, and you just do, and you kind of miss out on people, friends, activities. Like you had mentioned before, there's a lot you have to give up. Just realizing that you haven't enjoyed a night out sitting by a bonfire with your friends in many, many years, because you had to go to bed, get your meal, get up early, go to cardio, go to work, get your lift in. It really does. I spent a lot of years focusing on myself. And did my business grow? Yes. Did I become an IFBB Pro and a head judge and all those things? Yes. Great. But I didn't have a family. I didn't have a spouse. I had my friends, but I didn't see them often. You have to give up a lot. And I give kudos to the people who are able to maintain it and have, kids and spouses. because at the time I didn't. And I know myself, I wouldn't be able to give the attention to my husband and my home and my child at this point if I was competing again, because you have to focus on yourself. And that's a great thing, but it can be a bad thing. Like that's what I wish I kind of knew. Looking back, you give up a lot. And was it worth it? Yes, I wouldn't take it back. But would I do it again? No, I wouldn't. And I get my fix. You know, I get to be involved, still be in the sport that I love, teach and mentor all these young athletes. So I'm happy where I'm at now, where I get to be a part of it and still have my family.
Yeah.
And the other aspects of life that I enjoy. I enjoy cooking and eating and having a glass of bourbon. So going on vacation, not having to pack my meals, going to family parties and not worrying about what they're serving, because I can eat whatever I want.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's interesting because in other sports, when you're a pro athlete, you're playing that sport from the time like you're 5 years old, and
Yeah.
you know, you get good at it. Maybe like you're standout in grade school, so you go play high school, and then you get, you know, you get to go to college and play, and then people realize that you're really good, and you yourself, your family, your friends, they realize, okay, this is probably a potential like life decision they're making. Okay, now they're going to go play pro. I get that they have to like, you know, they have to be a pro athlete, and I get that they can't maybe spend as much time. They're going to be on the road, this, that, and the other. But when, you know, in bodybuilding, it's like, if you're 18, 20 years old, you can start the process, and people may not be, you know, they don't have the same time frame to be like accepting of this person's not going to be, you know, a quote unquote normal person with normal schedule.
Totally. Right. All of a sudden your friends are like, do you want to go out? And you're like, well, I'm going to bring my meals, like all of a sudden, you know, versus right. You've been playing since you're a little kid and you're the college basketball star. Like they're used to that. And bodybuilding starts at whatever point in people's lives. And yeah, it's hard for family to adjust to. It's really hard. It's hard on spouses. It's hard on kids. Cause then it's like, oh, let's go out for ice cream. Well, could you still with your kids or your husband or wife? Yeah, you could, but you fucking don't want to because you can't have any ice cream. And that sucks. So you tend to close yourself off to that, and other people have a hard time adjusting to it. They really do. You're at a family party or a bar and people are so uncomfortable if they're drinking and you're not. So then you just start to keep removing yourself from those scenarios where people are asking you all those questions. Yeah, it does. It's like an overnight thing. And all of a sudden people around you are like, what are you doing? You're doing what? How long is that for? Aren't you hungry? Can't you eat an apple? Apples are healthy. You know, it is. It's different than like long time playing sports.
Yeah.
It's bodybuilding. So
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
From a judge perspective, and I was actually talking to somebody here the other day, and they were pretty sure they were still the youngest IFBB pro in Kentucky, and they were talking about how they got their pro card, but they, you know, when they looked at the other athletes that were there, they could see in those other athletes that, hey, maybe they deserve this just as much as I did, or maybe even more. And so I asked them, and it's definitely more interesting, I think, asking you this question too, because you have that kind of insight and experience as a judge. But when it comes to like, you know, somebody who might be 22, 23, 24, and they're a top one or two person, maybe it's a 50-50 split. Has there ever been, to your knowledge, or is it a second thought in judges heads about, you know, this person is 22, 23. They have more time, they have more potential. They might be 1%, 2% less in this distinct, you know, competition, but this other person might be 30, 32, 33. They might not have as much time to build. So if we reward this other person with this pro card, we might see more out of this person.
That's a great question. I've judged many athletes where it's neck and neck. They're both relatively perfect. And I don't think I've thought of it or any of us have had conversations with each other, like, cause that's what we do. We like lean over and chat, or this one or that one. As far as like going that far in terms of potential, because whether you're 25 or 36, if you're the best that day, you win, period. And if it's close, who do I just kind of like more? That's who's getting it. I'm not thinking about like, well, who's got more long-term potential in this sport? Because now we've got Masters Pro, Master National shows, like, so, you know, they're still allowing even the older people to continue to compete. Sometimes the only thing we'll say is, let's say it's a girl who's, or a guy who's a little bit more conditioned, or a girl or a guy who has the perfect shape, structure, and muscle bellies. So then we'll chat to each other and say, okay, she is conditioned and has a relatively good physique. But this athlete, if they got in shape and lost 8 more pounds, they would absolutely belong on a national stage. Versus this athlete would get eaten alive on a national stage. They just happen to bring better conditioning and decent shape today, but that athlete could go pro. I don't have a concise answer either. Like, if that person lost 8 more pounds, they blow the whole show out of the water and go to nationals and do well. But that athlete brought their game today. They brought the conditioning, still have a relatively pretty good shape, could go to nationals, but structurally they're not as good. That's hard. That's so hard. People ask me stuff like that all the time. I can't tell you who I would pick over the other one. I can't. And that's the only, like, as far as we go is like, oof, but that one would do better nationally. So are we, and we're talking first and second place, that's a national qualification. So our job on the regional level is to be sending the right athletes to the national stage. Because those athletes are trying to get their pro card. So which one of them is closer to their pro card? Generally, it's that one that just needed to lose a little bit more weight, full muscle bellies, perfect structure, okay conditioning, perfect everything else but that conditioning, versus a person who has okay structure but great conditioning. That's hard, because you do want to reward muscle, but at the same time you want to reward conditioning, because that's hard work. Yeah. And then I'll take it a step further. That person who needed to lose 8 more pounds is maybe just doing this show as a warm-up. They already plan on going to nationals. So this is just their warm-up and they're already qualified. Like, so we know they're already like headed that way. They're not 100% ready. Yeah. I answered it and then tangented off and then kind of stopped, but that's hard. I mean, that young man, was it a guy, I'm assuming you were talking about?
Female.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20 online at mybapparel.com.
Female. That means good for her. She looked the best that day. And for whatever reason, maybe it could have been something as simple as her transitions were just really pretty. And the judges just kept looking at her, you know, just in a front pose, but her whole entire movements might have been just prettier. And that makes our eyes go to her. So good for her. She edged them out. I mean, that's part of the game too. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if those other gals were that good, then they'll get there. They'll get their time.
Yeah.
You know?
And for you, like, how often do you feel like it's a very, very close versus like this is the obvious winner? It's kind of just, we're just going through the motions at this point.
I would say at each show, and I judge a lot, maybe one of the classes out of all of them that day, it's really close. I mean, like, woo, first and second. Now we'll have a lot of like, oh, this is a great top 5, but I'm still like, this one wins. easy peasy, but an amazing group of athletes. But only every couple times it is really that hard where we're all literally talking to each other like, I just don't fucking know. Because they're both great. They're both maybe missing one or two things, but they're still relatively checking all the boxes. My most recent one was a bikini class at one of our spring shows. And man, all 6 of us judges were just like, you're almost stumped because they're just both so good. And at that point, I guess a good thing is there is no wrong answer. They're both amazing. They could both do well nationally. The NPC office could take a look at both of their pictures and say, oh, she wins. Oh, she wins. Like, it's not like one of them had some glaring, like, bad thing with them. Like, so there's no wrong answer. And that's hard, but maybe one class per show has like that tough of a decision. And some of them, there's just a clear winner.
Yeah.
And some of them, you know, you might have a particular group of athletes that no one is a clear winner. So that's probably harder than the neck and neck.
Yeah.
The whole group is just kind of, It sounds bad because I know everybody works so hard to get there, but this is a bodybuilding competition.
Yeah.
And I have to judge you on a set of standards. You know, that's really hard too. A whole group of, it makes me sound terrible, but it happens.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
It happens.
So what's kind of the, like, how are judges held accountable? You kind of mentioned like, you know, the NPC would take a look and say that, but like what kind of accountability do you have to the NPC?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we really, first of all, we screen you before you can test judge. So we do not want somebody who is a current local, and the rules change. They come down from the office because they're also trying to make sure things are fair and accountable. We ask questions. I have like an interview process before you can even test judge. Are you a local coach? Are you an IFBB Pro? They really don't want, you know, current competing pros judging their peers anymore. So not only do you have to get through the screening process, do you support Illinois shows? Did you ever compete at Illinois shows? Or are you just someone who's doing it for clout, you know? So then let's say they get past that screening process. Now they have to test judge 3 shows. They have to score a certain amount, matching the head judge's scores 3 times in a row. And if you're out, you're out. You're done. So let's say they make it past those 3 test judging. Now, every single time, you know, a judge is scoring, once you get passed down to that scorer, and the scorer is the one who tallies and everybody's scores into the computer. If they see a score across the board that is a massive, like really off, you know, let's say athlete number 25, generally speaking, got a 2nd place, a 3rd place, 2nd place, maybe a 4th, and then a 9th place. So that's noted. Now, the good thing is if somebody tried to high score or low score an athlete, either it's your client or it's your ex-girlfriend, the high and the low get canceled. So we eliminate that anyways. If you're trying to be dishonest, it gets eliminated. High and the low get canceled and you average out the other 3. But when you see a high or a low, it gets noted. And then I've scored before and I see a massive low or high, I will pick that sheet right up in the show, walk over to that judge and hand them their sheet and say, did you mean to do that? Was that a mistake? Because they're either that bad of a judge that they're not, like, if we all gave someone 2nd place and you gave them 9th, what is wrong with your eyeballs?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or are you being dishonest? You can change this right now. And if this is your score, then that's noted. So we'll attack things right there. We'll make notes of highs or lows. The head judge or the promoter will then look at the scores and just kind of briefly go over everyone's sheets afterwards, and really look at, like, how close were we all? Was it one of those classes that everybody was kind of so scores are 5th, 7th, or 8th, understandable. But if you're seeing like extreme highs or extreme lows, we make note of that. We have a discussion with that particular judge. And I've seen it a few times and those people no longer judge. they're out quick because we just can't trust them.
Yeah.
You're either not good or you're dishonest, and we want no part of that.
Yeah. And so if the NPC is kind of handing down these, these standards to follow, and then
Yeah.
you have to go and basically match what the head judge is doing, is
Yeah.
scoring. Do you feel like, obviously that's a positive as far as keeping the standards, the standard, and keeping, what people want, what they want, but do you ever feel like there's almost like a less potential for kind of like a changing up of the guard, maybe like a standard change, or like maybe what people want to see change, anything like that?
Yeah, I do. I get that. If you're 1 or 2 off from the head judge, that's fine. It's a subjective sport. So you can judge based off of your own. But if you're not a judge who's current, I mean, everybody you're kind of comparing to the Olympian standard of that division. That's what we're going for. And if you're not current or on that, then you just shouldn't be judging. You're just too far out. You don't know what's going on. You don't know how each division is changing, how men's physique is getting more muscular, how bikini really is softening out a bit. So if you're not like paying attention, because the head judge is paying attention to what's going on. So if you're not, and you really disagree with the head judge and the standard of what's going on right now, then you're just not in the sport. And we want people to, and I get what you're saying, like in terms of changing things up, but there has to be some sort of standard. There has to be across the board. Or else it's like, oh, well, you go to Illinois and everybody who's soft wins, and you go to California, everybody who's shredded wins. Like, it can't be that confusing. We all have to be on the same page, because this is a business, and these athletes have to have the same expectation for any NPC show wherever they go in the United States, that it is run the same, judge the same, and judge based off the standard, which is the Olympian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I know not necessarily every figure athlete at a state show is going to look like my girl, Sydney Gillian. But that's our standard. That's what we're going for. Just because you're skinny and shredded, that's not the standard.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? With no shape. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. No, and I think it has to be, so like you said, some sort of standard, or else you don't really have a sport anymore. You kind of have just like a talent show of different degrees. So
right, exactly. And really the NPC, and they're smart. It needs to be, a certain way, so that the athletes, aren't confused. If they decided they wanted to go visit their mom and do a show in Oregon, then it's not like, what the hell is going on here? Why is this run like this? Oh, I've never done this in Wisconsin. That's confusing for the athlete, and it makes their day not as fun, because they feel lost. And we want the athletes to have a good day, to understand and know what's to be expected of them, and what's going on, and what we're looking for.
For sure. So to kind of wrap things up, what would be your advice to somebody who wants to get into the sport of bodybuilding?
My advice, number one thing, is to go to as many shows as you can. Sit in the audience and watch it, and see if it really still excites you once you're sitting in the audience. And then find, which is the hardest part, find or interview multiple coaches. Find a coach who you personality match with. My coach was not he's not, Jason Theobald, a bubbly cheerleader. And that's not what I needed or wanted. I did what he told me to, and he expected me to. But some people really need someone to be bubbly and encouraging and hold their hand. So you find a coach that is going to be a good match for you. Interview coaches. Ask about their protocol, ask about their clients, ask about their check-in process, what their expectations are, etc. There's a lot of, they just want your money type of coaches out there. Go to shows, watch shows, talk to a lot of coaches, and be patient.
Yeah.
Be patient.
Yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice. And with patience, you know, a lot of things can happen and a lot of doors can open and a lot of,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of opportunities. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was really good getting to talk to you and kind of
Yeah.
getting your perspective from, you know,
Yeah.
the perspective that you do have now versus an athlete. So really appreciate you
Yeah.
coming on.
Yeah, things came. Yeah, and I appreciate you having me. It's fun. I did a podcast a few weeks ago with Adam from See You Later Leaner. He's a great guy, smart coach. I used to do more podcasts when I was competing, so it's been a minute. So I was excited that you reached out. I always love talking about the sport. You know, teaching athletes or coaches or whatever. It's my passion. So I love to still be in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I really appreciate it again, and it'd be
Yeah.
cool to get to have you back on. You know, I definitely have some more questions, but I know you're a little bit rushed
Sure.
for time, so I'll let you go
No.
and look forward to
Thank
putting
you.
this one out there.
Absolutely. Me too. And I'd be happy to come on anytime and ask me anything.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.